It's easier to control people that way.
System that shaped me was rooted here in London.
Absolute rubbish, laddie!
Get over and work.
For years, I thought British schools were just like in that Pink Floyd song. Strict, grey, no opinions allowed. After moving here, I realized that it was more about my school back in Russia, and it was another brick in the wall for me. The school year just ended, and my son Miron just finished year 3 in a regular English school. And something clicked for me. I have flashbacks to my childhood, and the way they teach here, it's not just different, it's a whole other mindset.
Russian schools teach like perfection, grammatical perfection, writing perfection. English education system just prepares for you to figure shit out on your own.
Школьное образование мне дало абсолютно всю меня.
One system builds strong pupils, but anxious adults. The other feels almost too soft for me, but maybe it's doing something smarter. There are lots of differences, but I picked up 3 that seems to shape us the most. Let's compare them and maybe figure out which school system actually prepares you better for life.
Sometimes it was easy for me, like maths and ICT.
Worth mentioning that this little bastard picked up fluent English like this. Meanwhile, my wife and I have been learning for years through suffering, tears, pain, and hatred.
And ridiculous amount of money our parents paid for this.
To double-check my memories and Miron's experience, I asked 2 brilliant girls. Ella edits my videos and went to school in Russia. Stacy moved to the UK at 13, finished school here. I'm Stanislav, a Russian living in the UK, and quick disclaimer, I'm not an expert on education. I'm just a guy comparing what I lived through in Russia to what I see now in England. I started school in 1994. The USSR was just collapsed, but no one told the schools. Same Soviet textbooks, same teachers, same rules, just without that glorious communist future part. It was actually a unique moment in history. Too late for Lenin, too early for Putin. We had a lot of knowledge, even maybe too much, stuffed in our little heads like Tetris blocks. Useful sometimes, practical rarely.
They drill knowledge into you, especially when it comes to academic subjects. You will learn them whether you want to or not.
Я благодарна, что в свое время меня заставляли учиться.
While working on this video, my mom helped me to find one of my old notebooks. I was 8 as Miron. Perfect handwriting, neat Cyrillic margins. 2 mistakes. I got a 3. It's a C, which means lower expectations. And then I opened Miron's notebooks. And the teacher said, "Great job!" Guess which one of us thought their writing was good? Yeah, for 3 decades, I honestly believed my handwriting sucked, all because of that C. Thanks for opening my eyes, Mom, but too late though.
For some reason, in Russian schools, was very important because it's discipline. A teacher asked me to write an essay about autumn. I went crazy with it. I wrote a short story. It was absolutely beautiful. I was so proud of it. And then I submitted the work and I got C because there were some grammatical errors and nothing else. There was no appreciation for my own individual approach, even though technically I put a lot of effort into my homework. It was never rewarded.
Russian school gave us loads of academic knowledge and a solid side dish of self-doubt provided by constant comparison with others, and often with no idea what to actually do with all that knowledge. Take my wife Ira. She has a degree in philology from Lomonosov Moscow State University. And what are you doing now, Ira?
I work in a big advertising agency as a global business director.
And she could be a teacher or a scientist. And this is actually the same for anyone I know. Trained for one thing, doing another. And that C for writing stuck with me for 30 years. So when I asked Miron, what marks do you get? He looked at me and said,
What? What is that?
And then my brain just glitched. Because in Russia, everything was graded. Every day, every subject. You know what we had in school? A 5-to-2 grading system. 5 excellent, 4 good, 3 a red flag, 2 your national disappointment. Wrong shoes on PE day, it's a 2 for PE. Didn't answer at the board, 2. And these weren't just numbers. They went straight into a diary, like a criminal records for kids. Here is mine. Dear comrades' parents, Stanislav's Russian language scores this term 5-2-2-2. Well, a strong start, then something went wrong. But here's the thing, the grades weren't the problem, the comparison was. There was always that kid, let's call him Vladimir. Lippy, grinning, laser-focused flat. The guy was basically trying to high-five the ceiling. Mr. Know-it-all. You freeze at the blackboard, mumble and sweating, and he shines. And the teacher? See? Vlad's parents must be proud. You sit down, too.
There would be a teacher who would deliberately fail me on most of my classes because she thought if she rewards me for my behavior, I will then stop trying. So it was kind of like disciplining me through punishment.
Даже самого жесткого учителя я любила. Может на меня наорать, дать мне кучу домашних заданий. Я со злости начинаю учить его предмет.
It wasn't feedback. It was a scoreboard, a status for your classmates, for your parents, for the government, sometimes for the teacher's own ego. And that diary, you had to take it home, get it signed by parents to complete this shame delivery loop. Oh, not every teacher was like that. There were absolute legends.
У нас была контрольная по истории. Мне дали тест, и я понимаю, что я ничего не могу ответить совершенно по этой теме. Поэтому моя подростковая душа решила написать стихотворение по предмету истории. Вот так вот сдала, грустно ушла домой, потому что думала, что это точно двойка. И оказалось, что у меня у единственной из класса была 4. И она сказала: слушай, знаешь, мне она очень сильно понравилась. Твоя контрольная была лучше, чем многие контрольные в этом классе.
But I switched schools 3 times, and it was the system, unfortunately. Teacher, boss, pupil, worker, parents, middle management.
Very intense. It's very high-pressured schools, and teachers are mean, and this like Soviet education system like still going strong, and you must respect the teacher.
In fact, teachers used to say, I'll give you a 2, your parents will deal with it. Translation, I'm done. Now it's you and your house on fire. And so parents panicked. Tutors got hired. Kids burned out, me included. And decades later, in London, it still follows. Miron goes to Russian Saturday school to keep up the language. One day, the teacher pulled me aside, right in front of him. He's not trying hard enough. You need to do something. And I just stood there, 8 years old again, ashamed, silent, and it wasn't even my homework. And I do remember now, the worst fear, it wasn't the marks. It was showing it to your parents. And I've literally scrubbed out a mark in a forest like some Soviet hobbit bandit. Here's the truth. Grades can be useful if they come with a plan, a direction, a goal, not just a punishment. And you know what? I think in the UK, they kind of get that. Teachers here, they more like project managers. They give term reports, not thread pants and threats. And no diaries, no public shaming, of course. Everything is quiet and private. Sometimes a little too soft for me. You spell cat with K, close and creative. Triangle with 4 sides. Love the abstract thinking. Good job. Look at Miron's school report. Excellent effort, good attitude, positive energy. But here's what I do know. He's not scared. He speaks up. He likes learning. He's not afraid of me and school. And that's the kid that didn't know English 2 years ago. That wasn't the case in my childhood, even though I have mostly warm memories. But there was also fear and anxiety. He's not hiding in the forest with a razor and a sponge. I'm calling that a win. My heart's in the highlands. My heart is not here. My heart in the highlands, chasing the deer, chasing the wild deer and following the road. My heart's in the highlands, wherever I go. Yep, Robert Burns, 25 years later, but why? Why is it still up here in my Russian head? Maybe I understand Scottish longing better than actual Scots, but most of it didn't exactly come in handy in life or job. In Russian school, memorization wasn't a technique, it was a philosophy. Let me open my old diary. Page 61 to 63, learned by heart. 3 full pages. Mercy, please. And there is a note. Analyze the painting of Monet and Serov. I was 8 for God's sake. I was still analyzing how to tie my shoelaces. Math, solid. Geography, sharp. Literature, deep. But if I had to sum it all up in 3 words, it's memorize, memorize, and probably memorize. Creativity, group work, personal opinion, almost never, unfortunately. In literature, the golden question was, what did the author mean? And I might have an idea, but if it didn't match some official critic, then clearly I misunderstood the author.
У меня тоже были такие учителя, которые говорили, вот есть произведение, вот это автор имел в виду. Я анализировала и пришла к тому, что это, наверное, для меня наилучший вариант. Дать вопрос, дать ответ, и уже потом мы начинаем вот искать какую-то свою истину на основе того, что у нас есть.
It was ideology, a leftover from the Soviet blueprint, designed not to raise an individuality, but to build a unit, efficient, reliable, and predictable.
It's easier to control people that way. You respect the elders, you respect authority, you don't question it ever. And I think that's where fundamentally it is coming from. So that's a motivation in itself.
Guess who laid the foundation for all this?
Correct.
Vladimir Lenin. Learn, learn and learn again, one of his favorite phrases. But fun fact, he didn't come up with that in Moscow, nope. Many experts believe that it was in the UK, in London. In 1902, Lenin worked and lived here in Clerkenwell, editing Iskra. It's a socialist newspaper by Russian immigrants that were living here in London. He planned the revolution. He worked hours and hours in a British museum library, reading Karl Marx and many other books. And of course, he started sketching the new Soviet educational system, free for all, mandatory, and he believed it would build the new type of human, the Soviet man. And ironically, the system that shaped me partially was rooted here in London, in Clerkenwell. And what about the British system? It doesn't train kids to learn too much theory. Now, it trains them to think. Ofsted and the Education Policy Institute say British education promotes deep learning, analysis, not just memory. Academic depth is balanced with real-world application. From day one, it's be yourself, speak up, your opinion matters. In Russia, being individualistic is often something not very good. It clashes with the cultural legacy, where you are raised to see yourself as part of something bigger, a group, a nation, a cause. In Britain, it feels like individualism is a learning objective, and it shows. Miron's not just learning facts, he's learning how to ask why. He debates, he pushes back, sometimes too much, honestly. They analyze texts, not recite them. There is a big reading culture here. Books are options, not commandments. I talk deeper about this in another video. The national curriculum exists, but teachers and schools have flexibility. There is no one interpretation to rule them all. It's soft skills, confidence, discussion, pathfinding. So maybe Brits don't always know all the facts, but they often know how to use what they know. They speak up, they suggest, they challenge, and it shows later when they grow up. Now, this is just me talking. You can argue in the comments, but I've noticed a Russian professional, sharp, precise, loyal, gets stuff done, often waits for green light. A Brit, flexible, creative, independent, but sometimes too chill. Like everything is up for discussion, everything is negotiable, even deadlines. Russian approach. Let's build the biggest wall in the world. Deep meaning behind every single brick. Everyone works 24/7 or gets fired. And the British approach would be, wait, do we need a wall? Let's run a workshop, loop in the team and maybe circle back after the bank holidays. Both systems work, but they raise very different kinds of humans. I think they balance each other. Russians and Brits could make one hell of a team. Honestly, Russians grew up thinking overwork is normal. Work-life balance, that's some Western propaganda. And while most of British kids after school go home and chill, Russian kids are just getting started. I logged into Miron's school portal. No homework for maths, nothing for English. Again, 3 weeks now, not a single homework task.
Actually, not really a lot, no. Oh, like only maths. We only do homework like on computers. We don't do it like on papers and stuff.
And I'm like, is this a mistake? But no, that's just how it is. And now I have another flashback. A desk, a dusty lamp, grey Soviet panel blocks outside. Hours of homework. Every single day. Poems, maths, reading, writing, more reading. At age 7.
What I do remember is that it would be long days, learning. And then you come home, they give you so much homework, and sometimes I would be at the textbooks until 10 p.m. So suddenly coming to England with so little homework, I felt much more free. English schools are a bit more learning individually, figuring out your own way of how to learn the subject. I think they are much more focused on results. How you get there is up to you, but at the end of the day, results must be there, which you can also say it's not perfect.
Once my parents came home late from work. I stayed alone. My dad, wise man, hid the TV remote, so I wouldn't touch my Sega, but he clearly underestimated me. I found the remote in 5 minutes and played Earthworm Jim for 4 hours straight. My eyes were vibrating. Maybe in English schools you would get away with it, but in Russia next morning I was called to the board. I didn't know the poem. Red pen, a 2 in my diary and straight into my soul. Worst part, my parents had to sign this in the evening. So I dragged myself home, full of guilt and fear, and I already knew the speech I would get. We work all day, so you could live in comfort, and this is how you repay us. And even though I laugh, my wife and I both feel it, that old fear, that if a kid isn't suffering, they are not learning. So we panic. We had tutors in math, in English, Russian school, Chinese classes, worksheets, because deep down, we inherited that voice from our parents. If they are not overwhelmed, they'll fall behind. If it's too easy, they'll be lazy. And we know it's wrong, but we still do it. And actually, Miron is doing great. New country, new language, and he's flying. And maybe that's why I'm starting to appreciate British school. They don't push kids into nuclear physicists at age 12, but they do try to raise something maybe even more important. A kid who is not afraid of school, not afraid of messing up, not afraid of being wrong or being himself. He doesn't hide bad marks. He doesn't freeze when asked a question. He learns because he wants to, not because he is scared not to.
Both have their pluses and minuses. Nothing can prepare you for how things are going to turn out for you. Individual curiosity, support from your loved ones, that's what is going to work for you in the end.
Школе не могут в целом ни в какой подготовить к этой взрослой жизни. Потому что ко взрослой жизни ты подготавливаешься сам. Это какой-то вот уникальный опыт лично для каждого.
So, do I know which system is better in the end? No, I have no idea. But maybe it's somewhere in the middle. Let me know what you think.